Well, our chief reporter Kaveh Solakal is in Istanbul and he's joined now by Jamie Carragher.
OK, on a day like today, you really want to talk to somebody who knows exactly what it's like to play in a Champions League final. Of course, this man has. You won the Champions League here in Istanbul in 2005 in the same stadium. What are your memories of that evening?
A lot, really. It gets brought up a lot, you know, the game, for obvious reasons. It was a special final that I was lucky to be involved in, really. We were huge underdogs, probably as big as maybe what Inter Milan are tonight against Manchester City. And yeah, listen, it was a free game result. It was a miracle in some ways, so I was very lucky to be part of it. AC Milan were a much better team than us, but it was just one of those nights and it fell for us.
And what's the stadium like to play in? Because it looks like quite an old-fashioned stadium, and it's open at two ends.
It's an amazing stadium when you win. It doesn't matter what the stadium's like, so I can assure you, I think the Atatürk Stadium's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's changed too much. You know, it's a long time ago now since we played, so if it's changed, you know, for the better, I think the infrastructure around the stadium's a lot better. Listening to supporters now, so easier to get to. But in terms of the play, you know, the players who play tonight, it'll be, you know, the biggest night of their lives football-wise. And if they could win, they don't care what the stadium's like. It'll be a great stadium, as I've described it.
And a lot of people are saying that obviously City are the favourites tonight. Do you give Inter any kind of chance at all? I mean, they are a club with a proud European history.
Yeah, you give them a chance, a game of football, and that's why we love football. There's always that sort of jeopardy or feeling that something could go wrong. You know, I keep going back to our final, AC Milan compared to us at that stage. I mean, I think the gulf is as big. I really do. And, you know, we come out on top. Inter Milan, I think they'd have to get the first goal. I just don't see how City would lose it by scoring first. But to make it a great fan, I think it'd be better if Inter Milan scored first, you know, and then there would be a little bit of jeopardy in it. You don't get that too often in Man City games. But the way Man City are playing right now, certainly the last 2 or 3 months, I mean, they're playing football I probably haven't seen since Pep's Barcelona team. And they are huge favourites, and I can't see anything but a City win.
A lot of people talking about the impact Erling Haaland could have on the game this evening. If you were playing against him as a centre-back, how would you handle him? Do you think you could handle him in your prime?
No, I'm not sure I could. I don't think I could. I'm not sure any defenders could, even in the prime. I've got an analysis tonight before the game that I just feel Inter Milan have got to double up on them. And teams have actually done that this season. You play a back three, which is what Inter Milan do. And when you play 3 defenders, it gives you an opportunity to double up, and you've still got the other centre-back. So I think if you're left 1v1 with Haaland, I don't think there's many defenders in this day and age or in the past when I was playing who could deal with them. So I think you need help.
Out of all the other City players as well, which ones have really impressed you the most this season?
I think in the last 2 or 3 months, when I'm talking about this real upturn in form, because City weren't playing like this in the first half of the season, but I would say this role of John Stones, that Pep Guardiola, initially it was from full-back, and then it was from centre-back stepping into midfield. I think he's been a revelation. I think Rodri all season's been outstanding. De Bruyne, some people say he's not having his best season, but he still creates the most chances, the most goals. And Haaland, of course, he's player of the year. To score over 50 goals in your first season is outrageous. But I think of late John Stones, so it'll be interesting to see what his role is tonight, considering that Inter Milan play with 2 strikers.
And you played against 2 Italian sides, AC Milan both times in a Champions League final. You've played against lots of other Italian sides as well. Is it different when you play against an Italian team? Are they much more disciplined? Is it much more of a game of chess than when you play, for instance, in the Premier League?
No, I mean, I think styles of football now in different countries are not completely different the way they were maybe 20, 30 years ago. I think a lot of teams play quite similar football, like to build up from the back. Teams, and even in England, can play defensively when you play against Man City, because if Man City have the ball, you've got to defend. So whether we think a certain team are, you know, an offensive team or a defensive team, against City they make you a defensive team because they'll have 70% of the ball. That will happen tonight. So Inter Milan will have to get bodies behind the ball and try and play on the counter-attack. But I think every team in world football coming up against Man City would have to do the same.
While we've got you here, I really want to ask you about Liverpool as well. They've already done some transfer business. McAllister signed this week. Do you think that's a good signing for Jurgen Klopp?
Well, he's certainly a good player. Whether he ends up being a good signing, we'll see when the season starts. It looks like he can play every position in midfield, which will help Liverpool. But he looks a super talent. Brighton, are a brilliant team. The only thing I would say is a lot of players who've come out of Brighton haven't replicated the Brighton form in other teams. So is that because, you know, they're part of a special system at Brighton? You know, the De Zerbi's been fantastic this season. So that'll be interesting to see. But no, I think it's a great signing considering the price as well. 35 million is a steal for a World Cup winner and someone who's got Premier League experience and is only 24.
What else do you think Liverpool need in the transfer market this summer?
They need another midfield player at least. I think Liverpool will end up getting another 2 midfield players, and I think they'll need a defender as well. Whether that's a centre-back or a full-back remains to be seen. There's a lot of talk whether Liverpool will keep with the system that they finished the season with. I think that's really interesting. But I think they'll get another 3 players in, defender and 2 midfield players.
One other thing we haven't spoken to you about, of course, is West Ham winning the Europa Conference the other night. What did you make of that, and how big an achievement do you think that is for David Moyes?
I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely loved watching it. Loved watching a team who aren't used to winning. You know, the last trophy was in 1980. You see the scenes when they, you know, take the cup home, the parade around the East End. You know, brilliant scenes that these supporters don't get, and lots of other clubs don't get this now because of the way the game's gone, where it just feels like the top teams win the prizes all the time. And I just think it's sad that so many teams, big clubs in this country, have gone so long without a trophy. And I think West Ham winning that will leave those supporters watching that thinking we want a bit of that, and maybe not sort of taking the Carabao Cup seriously enough, or taking the Europa League or the Conference League in Europe too serious. You've got to go for it. And I think the Premier League now has got so much power financially. Our teams who finish 6th, 7th, 8th in the league, we should be dominating these European competitions because we've got a lot more financial muscle than the other countries that we're coming up against. And I think seeing West Ham do that, I think it's Aston Villa who are in that competition next season, isn't it? I think they're supposed to be looking at thinking we want a bit of that.
David Moyes was under a little bit of pressure earlier this season. We've just found out this morning that he's definitely staying at West Ham. He held talks with David Sullivan yesterday. He is staying. Do you think that's the right decision for him to stay?
Yeah, I do. I think he can do at West Ham what he did at Everton. Similar sized clubs. Yes, they've had a poor season last season in terms of Premier League position, but that happened now and again at Everton. And he'd always respond the year after and sort of be in the top 8, sometimes a lot of the time the top 6 with Everton. So that's what West Ham were in the last couple of years. And I think David Moyes can get West Ham back in that top 8. Obviously, it looks like Declan Rice will have to go. They'll have to use that money wisely. But I think David Moyes' teams know how to respond.
Let's bring it back to Manchester City and the final this evening. Of course, one team have done the treble before. That was Manchester United. There's been a lot of talk about what they did in 1999. How do you think this City side compares to that United side? And did that United side have it harder? Was it more difficult for them to do what they did in 1999? Because I think it was tougher for them to win the title. They had a bit of a tougher run in the FA Cup as well.
No, it wasn't tougher. It was tougher because they weren't as good as this Man City team. That's why it was tougher. You know, they didn't get as many points as the Man City team in the league. When you look at all the numbers through a season, Man City, you know, I think are better than that 99 team. What I would say is the 1999 team of Manchester United was probably a better achievement because they brought a lot of young players through. So you think if you go through that team, there's 4 or 5 local players, then that's pretty special to then go on and do what they did. Man City don't have that in their team. A lot of players have come in for a lot of money, as happened at Manchester United. But in terms of who I think had come out on top and what the better achievement is the same achievement. There was a lot more jeopardy. It was a lot more exciting watching United because, again, I don't think they were quite as good as this Manchester City team where they just beat teams with ease. What they did to Bayern Munich, what they did to Real Madrid. I mean, obviously United had unbelievable spirit, fight, quality, of course, and an amazing achievement. But I just do think this City team certainly have the edge quality-wise.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, Jamie. We'll let you get off now. Those are the thoughts of Jamie Carragher, a man who's been there, done it, won the European Cup here in Istanbul, and he's pretty sure that City are going to emulate what Manchester United did in 1999 this evening.